Story 1. Running through LMOP. My table of noobs confront the Red Brands outside the Sleeping Giant in Phandalin. The banter of the conversation ended with a PC inquiring with a ruffian about a place to sleep. In my best DM response, I state that the ground would be a great place once we're done with you. The PC then said, "I'll sleep on your corpse." Needless to say, this became a thing. After the encounter, the PC's character laid down on the ruffian's dead body. I had a fun time NPCing Sildar Hallwinter as he approached the party after that encounter. After that, well, the practice has continued. The group named themselves the Necro Nappers, LMAO. Story 2. My adventurers got into the habit of skinning dead things and wearing their skins. They came upon the dead body of a local noble and decided to skin him and make his skin into a skin suit that they would then wear together. The party was a dwarf and a gnome, and the dead guy was a human, so the gnomes stood on the dwarf's shoulders while they donned the suit. So I made them roll a survival check to see how well made the skin suit was. They rolled a natural 20. For every action they performed whilst in the skin suit, I made them describe to me how they performed the action in the skin suit. This also became a thing. Story 3. Not a story I've personally experienced, but something I was told off. The party was made up of various monstrous races, and one of them was a Menauder assassin. Yup. So they narrowed a rival gang hideout, and they set up a plan of action. The Menauder said to them, "I'll go in. When you hear the signal, you burst the door open and barge in." One of the guys asks, "What's the signal?" To which the Menauder responds, "Oh, you'll know." And he does his shadow assassin thing where he phases through the wall. A sec later, the party outside hears someone inside shouting, "Holy! Ah! A Menauder just passed through the wall!" At that point, the others looked each other. Yup, that's the signal. Story 4. I hosted my first session as a DM for some friends last night, and they encountered a fight against an ogre. Something to note was that this ogre came into the fight completely naked with only a club in hand, and he was male, so you can guess how that looked XD. The fight ended with the bard of the group using vicious mockery on the ogre, telling him, "You have a small pee-pee." And the ogre dies. Not a long story, but a funny ending to a fight for sure. Story 5. Ha! So another story I just thought of. At my table, a brother and sister play PCs. The brother is a drunken dwarf fighter and the sister a tiefling rogue. Their characters are not bro-cis in the game. As I'm describing glowing rocks in my iteration of the Mine of Phandelver, the dwarf takes his axe and hits one, causing shards of the rock to fall to the floor. He asks if he can eat one of the shards, thinking it to be candy. So I, the DM, say, "Yes, but roll a D6. Mentally, I put a qualifier that if the D6 landed on a 5 or 6, the dwarf starts choking. It landed on a 5. I tell him he starts choking on the rock, but none of the PCs were terribly worried. His sister laughs at him, commenting about how she hoped he dies or something typical. But still no one helps the dwarf. So I had the NPC cleric administer the Heimlich. I narrated that as the dwarf coughed up the rock shard, it hits the tiefling square in the face, and toss a D4 for damage. She took 3 points of damage, but then I waved it all off. It was just a funny interaction that helps make the game very, very fun. Story 6 party went to Silvery Moon to rob somebody. They all ended up getting full-time jobs and waited a week before planning the heist. The dwarf in half-plate totally botched his stealth, sneaking up to start a distracting fire that the sorcerer concentrating on spider climb got hit by a guard checking out the noise that he lost, the spell dropping the wild-shaped druid 15 feet, causing enough damage to drop him out of wild shape. They are currently debating whether or not to leave town. Story 7. I was running my party through a dungeon where they came across a room with cursed mirrors that on a failed wisdom saves showed the PCs their worst fears and caused a lot of psychic damage. First player goes through, saves, and moves on. Second player fails. I go into detail about how their long-dead sister blames her for her death, condemning her with guilt and shame. Third player fails. Has an equally dark experience as she witnesses her barbarian rage consume her, and she becomes a horrific monster. Fourth player, seeing this happen, decides to look directly into the mirror. She witnesses herself living out a dull and meaningless existence far from adventure. By this point, the players have realized that I have prepared these dark, nightmarish fears for each of their characters and are both freaked and excited. The first player turns around. "That looks fun. Can I have a go?" Suffers crit damage and lands on 1 HP. About 20 minutes before they reach the beholder I had lined up for them. Story 8. Longish one. So I was running a kraken hunting campaign inspired by Puffin Forest, and the party, at 4th level, managed to beat a level 14 rogue that rolled terribly when I fought them, and they ended up earning a massive treasure hoard, enough to buy an airship and still have a considerable amount of money. I did not mean for them to beat the rogue. It was a few sessions after that, and I had given them some magical items, which included an iron flask with a night hag trapped inside. They encountered an airship of 15 pirates and 3 captives. After a few rounds of back-and-forth ranged attacks, they decided to end it sooner, so they threw the night hag at them. At this point, the pirates were relatively banged up, so they could not resist a night hag. Every pirate died, and the night hag moved on to the PC's ship. 2 players, a warlock and a paladin, said, "I rolled to befriend it. Natural 20, 19. The hag starts talking to them all friend-like until it remembers that it was thrown while inside a flask. It starts asking who threw it. Now, I am not a very good DM, needlessly to say, and one of the captives on the ship was an insurance salesman. Since they were hunting a kraken, they wanted insurance for their airship, so John from City State Farm was thought of immediately. He is the captive. This was all before the hag, by the way. They had started planning to attack the ship and retrieve the salesman until one of them remembered, "Wait, if we need someone from City State Farm, all we need to do is ask for their help, right?" This is the point where a good DM would draw the line, but oh no, not me. They asked, and the captive disappeared from the pirate ship and appeared on theirs. They started asking him for insurance. Eventually, the night hag was thrown, and now you are all caught up. So, since John from City State Farm had not given them free insurance, some of them said John, and the paladin and monk said the druid, who was the one who did throw the flask. The warlock, whom I had let have 50 rabbits, said, "It was one of my rabbits. Since I'm not a good DM, I rolled intelligence for the rabbit. Nat, 20. Yeah." The rabbit piped up and said, No, I didn't." Surprisingly, this was overlooked and not referred to again. Eventually, the players decide to get the truth out, so they started saying, "It was the druid." Since they had been saying it was John for so long, I had each of them roll persuasion. First was the monk, Nat. 1 minus 1, 0. Then druid, who said John. Nat 2. Then warlock, who said the druid. 3 plus 1, 4. Then paladin, 4. The hag still thought it was John, and they had to spend a little longer convincing it. By then, the hag was tired of debate and just gave up. In case you don't believe that I'm a bad DM, listen to this part. Earlier in the campaign, I had them explore a large island. There, the warlock befriended a fucking 2-legged giraffe. Yeah. The hag started talking to the warlock, asking if they wanted to be friends. The warlock said yes, and yay, it's over, you think. Oh no, not by a long shot. I had the hag want the warlock get rid of the 2-legged giraffe. The warlock said no, and the hag said, "Let this be decided in battle." Still don't think I'm bad? The giraffe fucking won. And that's the story of when I realized that I was a bad DM. Story 9, I was a player in a home game in a group of 5 players, and we were low level at the time, less than level 5. We had to get rid of some goblins in a cave, as you do. As the party rogue, I was attempting to sneak ahead into the main cave chamber to see what we were up against. Natural one on my stealth check as I turn the corner. A bunch of goblins all stare at me, and the rest of my party is like 30+ feet behind, so no support for at least one round. Thinking fast, I go, "Cave Inspector, need to check everything is up to code." Natural 20, factorial on the deception. We eventually convinced them to leave the cave and join us as followers, which met our quest completion, as they were no longer in the cave bothering the town. We outfitted half with crossbows and half with shields and pole arms and marched around with a little goblin army. Story 10. Running out of the abyss, and as the PCs enter the Dark Lake, I have them be followed by a giant rocktopus, part of the adventure. 'Cause why not? Ran the fight with the piratey Quotoa, and the rocktopus pops up. The PCs have a discussion about what to do on the wizard's turn when one says, "Why not use catapult?" Discussed, and thought that, though it was a good idea, there wasn't anything to throw. Suddenly someone else says, "Why not throw the octopus?" I know it's probably over the weight limit, but anyway. The octopus got flung from the water and landed on the captain's head, pitching him over the side. Might not sound as funny like this, but the party could not breathe for laughter for the next few minutes.